Hi everyone, this is Stephanie Weaver here in the Blue and Yellow Kitchen where cooking meets culture. And on the camera today is Microwave Boy. Hi Microwave Boy.
Hello Steph.
And today I'm featuring this incredible cookbook called Jubilee by Toni, Tipton, Martin. Martin is the author of an also incredible book called The Jemima Code. And this is a labor of love, an incredible feat of scholarship, and an amazing cookbook and a work of art. So the reason there's no food on the counter yet is it's such a beautiful cookbook. I do not want to get it dirty while I'm talking about it. So it's got an embossed cover. It's got, gold page in the front. I mean, it is just exquisite. And the subtitle is Recipes from 2 Centuries of African American Cooking. What Martin did was to name the people who have been nameless up to now, at least for white folks, for sure, and I think for Americans of any race, to know the names of the people that she is referencing and talking about, and understanding their culture and their history and their contributions to the culinary arts is really pretty incredible. She collected and reviewed over 400 Black cookbooks. So she went to bookstores and online auctions and reviewed them and considered them and thought about them, and then decided of all of that information what she thought should belong in this cookbook, this celebration cookbook, and then she actually developed and tested all the recipes. So I'm just like bowing down to everything this book represents. It's won multiple awards as it should be. And the other thing that's interesting, so I recently talked about and showcased Sweet Home Cafe cookbook, which is from the National African American Museum of History and Culture at the Smithsonian. And that book, for me, was really more kind of an introduction to soul food and African American cooking. And while it certainly does name some of the people, it's really more the traditional way one thinks. I used to always think about African American food as from coming from enslaved persons, from sharecropper tradition, from poorer people. There's a whole range of the African American experience. And this book focuses more on Black and middle class entertaining, which I found really fascinating. The photography is by Jarrell Guy, and one of the things that you'll notice, and that really made it stand out for me, the photography is absolutely stunning. All of the photography is absolutely stunning. But all of the hands, if there's hands in the shot, are Black hands. And as I was going through the cookbook, it made me realize that maybe I'd never actually seen Black hands photographed in a cookbook before, which might just reflect more my poverty in not choosing the right books. But I just felt like there was so much detail about the celebration of the Black experience that I really appreciate. So today, we're going to be celebrating Abby Fisher, who is a formerly enslaved woman who wrote a cookbook called What Mrs. Fisher Knows About Old Southern Cooking. And in her cookbook, there is an entire section on croquettes. And so I learned how to fry for the first time. I've never deep fried anything. Just wasn't kind of in my wheelhouse. And I thought, okay, I'm going to take on this challenge. I'm going to learn how to deep fry. So in a minute, we'll be back and you'll see that I've got everything organized for that. So, but I wanted to just talk briefly about Abby Fisher. So, let's see. Her book incorporated an entire section of croquettes made with lamb, chicken, crab, veal, liver, oysters, and fish.
Do we know about when her book was published?
1881. She moved to Northern California and won awards for her cooking and published this recipe collection. So we're making salmon croquettes with Remoulade sauce today. I did do a test batch a couple days ago. Delicious. But I just wanted to do what Toni Tipton Martin does in this book, which is honor a very specific woman, a creative, a Black creative, and her recipe. So this is one of the ingredients I had to purchase for this remoulade sauce. It's delicious, totally worth it.
Where'd you get it?
Ordered it on Amazon. So remoulade is a French-based sauce. It's a mixture of mayonnaise, mustard, usually capers, sometimes anchovies. This is a kind of a spin on that. So we've got organic mayonnaise, some finely minced scallions, beautiful, fresh. I just ripped it off. Oh, this fresh parsley smells so good. I think there's a little bit of minced celery in there. Worcestershire sauce, I actually make my own, low sodium. And this is what's going to be going on these croquettes. So I'm just going to taste it, tell you. So good. So there's super creamy. Then you get the vinegar note kind of the back of your throat. Then the mustard kind of kicks in. And then you taste some of those fresh herbs. So it's a really lovely sauce that will be the accompaniment to our salmon croquettes. Okay, so you've got your jar of wild Alaska pink salmon, drained, and this is it's the 14.75 ounce jar. So pop that out. Probably didn't drain it quite as much as I should have. And so canned salmon does have skin and bones in it. And so Toni recommends, if you're using canned salmon, you can also, of course, use cooked salmon that you've leftover cooked salmon to make these, I'm assuming. You just want to really mash really hard because the skin and the bones, you just want to break them up because they are edible as long as they're broken up, and they actually add a lot of calcium to your diet. So it's one of the reasons. And then, of course, salmon is a fatty fish, so it's very high in omega-3 fatty acids. It's also not super expensive to buy canned. So I think it's processed right off the boats in Alaska. So you're getting a wild-caught fish that's not super pricey, but is still super nutritious and yummy. All right. So you can see that that's all nicely broken. All right. Then we've got some finely minced celery, quarter cup, half a cup of finely minced onion. And then we've got some salt, cayenne, it's supposed to be ground black pepper. I'm out of ground black pepper, so I've got white pepper. Sorry, Toni. I know you understand. And then 2 eggs, lightly beaten. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this bowl, beat those eggs up. And then I'm going to talk about the breadcrumbs or the cracker crumbs. So this is a challenge for those of us who are gluten-free. Sorry, because it's bread and crackers are different. They're made from different things. They're not made from wheat, so they've got just different texture. I ended up toasting almost an entire loaf of white gluten-free Trader Joe's bread, and it didn't even it made like 3/4 of a cup by the time it was all ground up. So this time I went with Breton gluten-free crackers. It's an entire sleeve, but it should be about the right amount for this recipe. So, but the other thing is, so the recipe calls for 1.5 cups of, oops, I have my little guy here. My little Thumbelina's not here. It's okay. It calls for 1.5 cups, but gluten-free product, bread, batter, etc., absorbs a lot more liquid than regular bread. And so I did follow her recipe. I made a half recipe a couple days ago, and it seemed a little dry to me, and I think that was the gluten-free breadcrumbs. So I'm going to use probably less than the recipe calls for, and I'm just going to kind of see texturally where I feel like it's going to be a good croquette that's going to hold together. So let me show you what this looks like before I add the breadcrumbs. Okay, so you can see it's still pretty wet, moist. We want it a little bit drier than that because you don't roll them in breadcrumbs. The breadcrumbs actually go in it. So I'm going to start with about 1/2 cup of these cracker crumbs, which is what I ended up doing, is I just ran these through the food processor, crumbled them up, and then throw them in the food processor. And I'm going to mix this together and just kind of see where I feel like is a good moisture level. They don't want them to be over dry. Now, if you find, what is that? I think it's probably a bone or something from the salmon. If anything kind of sticks out, like looks like a bone, just pull that out. That's totally fine and probably a good idea.
So the cracker holds things together?
It's a binder, yes. Yeah. And so that's very traditional, since I've never made croquettes. They are, I guess, bound together with a breadcrumb or a cracker crumb. So let me show you what we're looking at here now. So you can see that, so if I touch it with my fingers, it's still pretty wet. So I'm going to add another half a cup. It's definitely holding together, but it needs to hold together well enough that when you drop it in the oil.
Is that how you know you have enough crackers? Is it starting to stick together?
Yeah, well, stick together, but also you don't want it to be really moist because you don't want them to fall apart in the oil. So it's this kind of dance between getting it dry enough. That's why I really wish Toni had been available because I wanted to have her walk me through this so I knew what I was looking for. That's okay. You've been watching for a while. You know that I have a favorite wee spatula. So this actually used to have a long stick and it broke. And I just hate throwing things away. I'm my mother's daughter. So I decided, well, it's still usable. I'll just hang on to it. So microwave boy, named it Thumbelina because it's so tiny and cute. And it is the best little spatula. I use it probably more than any other spatula I own. So that's Thumbelina, in case you're wondering what that was all about. Okay, so this has a cup. Hopefully you're going to be able to see the difference in the texture. Bring it up here. This has a cup of breadcrumbs. So I hope you can see that it's much.
It looks much different.
Yeah, it looks much different. Now it's still a little bit. I'm still a little concerned it won't. Let me actually just try molding one and see how. This might be okay, but I think I might add a quarter cup. Yeah, let me just try that. This is why I have a towel here, an old gross towel, but it's because I'm wiping my hands.
You're making that decision because a little bit is falling off?
Yeah, it just feels really wet, and you don't want it to be wet, but you also don't want the interior of the croquette to be dry once it's cooked. So I'm just, rather than just dumping the whole cup and a half in, since I made a test batch and these seemed a little dry, but these breadcrumbs or these cracker crumbs are different than the ones I used the other day. So again, it's a little bit trickier when you're making something gluten-free that wasn't designed to be gluten-free. You just kind of have to go by your experience. But you can't, okay, now I'm going to just pull this out because I want to show you. This is actually a little cross-section of bone, which you probably would want to pull out. So I'm going to do that. Okay, so you can see that it's pretty holding together really nicely. Let me just pick it up and, yeah, so that feels different. It feels like if I squeeze it, liquid's not going to come out. It's holding the shape really nicely. And now Toni's instructions are to use floured hands, which my hands are not floured right now, so it is going to stick to my hands a little bit. But I think I'm good to go. So I'm using grapeseed oil, and Toni's, I've tried frying before, once or twice. It was always a total disaster, so I was really afraid to do it. And then Toni said half an inch of oil. So I thought, well, how do I know what a half an inch of oil is? So I marked a skewer with a little black line that's a half inch, and then I'm going to stick it in there, and I'm going to add a little bit more till I get to that point where it is meeting that line, and then I know I've got the right amount of oil in there. And then it does take about 10 minutes to heat up, so we will be back. So this was just grapeseed oil from Trader Joe's in a heavy, relatively deep skillet, because you want When you put the croquettes in, they're going to bubble up, and so can't be too shallow of a pan. But this way, I used about a jar of oil to fry, and then I'm just checking the temperature. We're going for 350. I got it too hot, so I had to turn the burner off, let it cool down a little bit, and now I've got the burner back on, and I think pretty close to 350. If it hits it really fast on this thermometer, then I know I'm a little bit over. So see, now I'm at 354, 355. So I know people have been frying without a digital thermometer for years, like thousands of years, but I don't know how they do it, honestly. So I'm going to try testing a piece of bread just to see. So you see that you're getting that nice sizzling, but it doesn't look like it's getting too brown too fast. So I think we're good on temperature. And when you do put food into the oil, it does cool down the oil a little bit. So it's okay for it to be off by a little bit. When I made this first patty, let me show you the patty, I was concerned it was a little wet. So I'm going to fry one up as a test and just kind of see how we go here. You want to be really careful. Stand back. And then I'm going to be keeping a really close eye on it. Now Toni says 3 minutes per side for larger patties. This is a smaller patty, so I'm really going to give it maybe just a minute. It doesn't look like it's falling apart, which is good. And she says to use a spatula and a spoon or a fork to turn them so they don't break apart. To me, a slotted spoon made more sense, so that's what I used last time. And you also can check, as it's cooking, you can check to see, here, try to do it without burning myself, the underside. See, I'm just going to kind of watch that color because I got them overcooked last time. Of course, the oil, I think, was a little too hot. So this is looking actually pretty good.
Can you tell yet the difference between using bread
So last time I used
cracker?
the gluten-free breadcrumbs, which were kind of dried and then toasted in the oven and then broken up. Oh, this is perfect, so I'm going to just turn it over. Okay, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for that beautiful brown but not dark color.
You're a lefty, I'm a righty.
Yeah.
This is where it doesn't work.
This is where it doesn't work. We always know, one of us has to always sit on the other side, that particular side of that person. And then I've also got, so I'm wearing my full coverage apron because I'm frying. Once you turn the burner on, don't move the pan because this is very, very hot oil, and I just constantly kind of remind myself, very hot oil will burn me. I've got a plate covered in paper towels ready for the croquettes, and I'm going to check again this back side and see.
Oil hot.
Oil hot. Yeah,
Burn.
that's good. Yeah, right. So, you know what? I'm going to give that one more 30 seconds maybe. And then, so we're going to taste this. I think this is good. And then I can cook the rest of the croquettes for our lunch.
You said that it was important that this was a deep and thick pan?
Yeah, so it's a heavy pan, which means it's going to conduct the heat better. But you also want it to be deep enough so that if I put 4 in there, which is what I normally would have done, there's a lot of boiling that happens, and you don't want the hot oil to boil over. That's very dangerous. So you don't want a super shallow frying pan, and of course I'm sure you could use a cast iron for this, would probably be great, and that's probably what people initially used. They didn't use fancy stuff like this. Okay, that's looking really nice. I'm going to go ahead and put this on a plate, give myself a little bit of sauce here. I'm going to go ahead and just eat this hot because why not, right? And I didn't burn it, so. And then, you know, if you're going to garnish, maybe a little bit of that lovely parsley. All right. So you hear that nice crunch? Ooh, very exciting. Very excited. So we got a nice crispy exterior, nice soft interior. Hopefully I cooked them long enough. We'll see. So good. Yes. And they're not as, they were a little overly dry the other day. So delicious. So the thing about frying properly, if you're at the right temperature and then you drain in the paper towels, you actually don't get a lot of fat in the food. So a lot of us went through a low fat phase which lasted a really long time. Granted, fried food is not something I eat on a regular basis, but knowing how to fry properly and knowing that I'm using a good quality grapeseed oil, that's a high temperature oil, and I'm making sure it's the right temperature. If the oil's not hot enough, what happens is it doesn't make that crispy exterior right away, and then you just get soggy, absorbed, tons of oil, yucky, which is what happened in the past. So I do recommend, if you're going to try this and you've never fried before, having that instant thermometer is really helpful. But you can throw the piece of bread in there and kind of see how fast does it cook. Does it look like it's burning really quickly? So this is, again, such a pleasure to read. I cannot recommend this book enough. It was a little bit of the acknowledgments, which I normally wouldn't do. I would have had Toni read it if she was here. Okay, so last but certainly not least, I must also, I'm going to cry actually. I must also acknowledge and honor the ancestors whom I treasure for their wisdom, faith, and perseverance. When some people looked at you, they saw mere laborers and didn't even call you by your true names. I saw a glorious diaspora of bright stars using hospitality to express their hearts. You reminded me that I descend from a tradition of strong black women who observed beauty in the world around them and nurtured others no matter how limited or how few the resources and opportunities afforded to them. And through this, you quieted my anxious spirit, gave me the courage to look back over my 40-year food industry career, and taught me to trust in my own culinary love language. Because of you, new vistas of self-awareness and self-confidence are mine. You have given life to the truism that you can't be what you can't see. I proudly embrace your bandanas.
Why does that speak to you?
Over the years have been nameless and faceless. So many workers, so many people of many colors, and so many people of color have been nameless and faceless. And even during the pandemic, we talk about people as being essential workers, but we're not paying people well. We're not taking care of them. We're not making sure they have enough PPE. So while this is, in a sense, a historical love letter, it's also very current, and it speaks to me because I just think of how much our country lost by enslaving these incredible people and not giving them the freedom, not giving them the opportunity. One of the things that I'm learning is that it's really only been since the 1960s that black people truly had sort of the freedom to do what they thought they wanted to do, and even then they were hampered by a lack of property and family wealth. So it just kind of gets to me. And so, Toni, thank you. It's such a beautiful work. I did read every word, as you can tell, and I just want to thank you for this love letter to your people and your culture, and it has enriched my life.
And thumbs up on?
Thumbs up on the Salmon croquettes. Yeah, woo, baby. Okay, so I'm going to put the buy link in the comments, so please order this book. If you find this something you want to share, or you know someone, share it and tag them. That's great. You can follow me, SWeaverMPH, and you can find all of Toni's amazing work at ToniTiptonMartin.com, ToniTiptonMartin.com. So thank you so much for watching. That was I was a little not expecting to get that worked up, but it just shows you that art moves us. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon in the Blue and Yellow Kitchen.